Welcome to Shop Dust. I'm Tim, and today I'm going to show you how I built this birdhouse for my dad as a present. So stay tuned and watch how I did it. Starting out, I used some scrap 1/2-inch ply cut to 8 inches wide, 10 inches long, and 6 inches high. These will make up the sides, the back, and the front of the birdhouse. Here I laid the two sides and front down on a flat surface, found center on the front piece, and used a straight edge to draw the angle of the roof slope. And I like to use a pin nailer to secure my template to my workpiece when I use the pattern bit and the router, just to make sure nothing slips. Here I'm cutting the roof board angle out of 1/2-inch ply, but change it to 3/4-inch ply later in the build. There will be more on why I did that later. I found 3 finish nails and a thin strip of wood make a great tool for drawing arcs. Here I'm laying out and cutting out the windows with the scroll saw, but a jigsaw would work here too. But regardless of how the windows get cut out, every bird that lives here has got to have a view. I use a 1/4-inch rabbit bit to cut rabbets around the interior of all window openings to accept plexiglass and the window frames I'll be making later, because every bird needs these things in their big luxury birdhouse. And while I'm at the router table, I'll use a 1/2-inch straight bit to cut out 3 1/4-inch dados in the base for the walls to slip into for support. And now maybe you're starting to see that this may not be just your typical birdhouse. I'm going to go ahead and cut the arc of the base on the bandsaw, give it a good sanding, and give it a couple coats of black paint so I'm able to do other things while it's drying. Now I'll square off the rabbet and the square windows with the squaring chisel and cut the round back glass on the bandsaw and use the belt sander to sneak up on the fit. Now to the table saw and sled to sneak up on the fit for the side windows. I found these scrap pieces of mahogany that I'll use for my window frames, but it needs to be sanded down here a bit on the drum sander first. I'll use the table saw again to get a snug fit for each window and then label each block of wood to its individual window casing so I don't lose track of where each part goes. Now to spend some time at the scroll saw and cut out some cool little windows. Now for some decorative touches like the front porch supports. I'm using pin nails to temporarily hold the birdhouse together while I attach the siding. I cut the siding and roof material out of a 1x5 Florida cedar at an 1/8 of an inch thick. So this is where I ran into some problems with my nails blowing through the other side of the wall. So I just used a Dremel tool with a cutoff wheel and cut the nails flush to the back side of the wall. I don't really think the birds will mind too much. Now to cut out the siding inside the big black window, again using the scroll saw. I'll be filling that back window with this scroll saw pattern cut from a 1/4 inch piece of bolted birch ply and some plexiglass to fit. I found that using a heat gun to heat up the adhesive behind the paper makes it easy to just peel off the paper pattern, and then I run it through the drum sander, but a palm sander will work just as well. On the roof, I replaced the old 1/2 inch ply with 3/4 inch ply so the nails I use won't blow out on the backside when I attach the shingles. Well, that made me poop my pants a little bit. Luckily, I was using a push stick. Still got all 10 fingers. I made this new throat plate in place of an old throat plate. And, zero clearance. I was cutting an 1/8 inch, and it's just got a little bit too much flex to it, as you can see. Bends pretty easy. And I think what happened there was, as I was pushing the piece of wood through, this side doesn't have any support in the table saw itself, and it flexed just enough to kick that wood a little bit wonky, and it kicked back on me, and yeah, scared me a little bit. I've been using this throat plate for years, but it doesn't set flush with the table. Sorry about the fan, but it doesn't set flush with the table, and it's bowed a little bit. The fence does straighten it out when I put the fence on, but I wanted to have something new because I wanted something that would fit flush with the table. Garbage. I did make a new push stick. Made one that I can replace the sole. My old one that's like this was too chewed up, so I went ahead and made a new one. And after this little incident, one where I could replace the sole of it and try to continue to stay safe in the shop. With that, let's get back to the birdhouse. I used painter's tape to tape up all the strips of cedar and gain cut everything to 17 inches. I make a stop mark on the table saw sled at 1 inch from the blade curve and use it to keep all my cuts the same. Attaching the shingles was pretty tedious. because the 1/8" cedar is quite brittle and the nails will just shoot right through the cedar strips. So I used 3/4" finish nails and set the gun to the lightest recess setting and made adjustments until the head of the nail was flush with the top of the cedar shingle. To the base. It'll be built from a treated 2x4 and 4x4 and will be 5 foot 2 inches tall. Here I'm marking out a 2x4 for a half lap joint. I'll mark half the height of both boards and use a scrap piece of the same material with a center mark as a guide to mark for the width of the cut, and cut it out using the table saw and the sled. The 4x4 was a bit awkward, but my jet tinning jig held it nice and secure as I made the cross mortise cuts on the table saw. I did have to finish off the cut with the bandsaw and a chisel because I couldn't raise the blade on the table saw high enough in fear of cutting into the metal plate on the jig that holds the workpiece at 90 degrees. Now that everything is a nice tight fit, I'll secure it together with a 3.5" screw. Here I'm pre-drilling and countersinking holes in the base to secure it to the stand. Also, I'll be drawing some guidelines for pre-drilling and doing some countersinks to attach the house to the base later as well. time for some bird feed rails. I used 3/4 inch and 1/2 inch oak dowels for this, and kind of mortise and tinted them together using epoxy. Marking for these rails took a bit of thought. I held them steady and drew around each one with a pencil and used an awl to mark the center the best I could. So my marking turned out good and the rails fit just right, so I went ahead and used 5-minute epoxy to glue them into place. So the porch post needed a little something, so I went ahead and scrolled out this plaque of Home Sweet Home to ride right above the front door so the birds know that they have arrived.